Good morning, high school. It is Monday, March 22nd, and I'm pretty sure we've been here before. We've been here before? I think we've been here before. Here we are, 1 year and 1 week into quarantine in the Philippines, and it feels like we're in the exact same spot we were last March, in a restrictive quarantine with travel being disallowed. Our family just canceled our third set of tickets trying to come back to the Philippines, and once again travel has been restricted, and it feels like we're just living March 2020 all over again. And that's been on my mind so much that I've kind of forgotten that we're in the season of Lent. And usually I think more about that and talk more about that, but everything else that's been going on has just been really distracting. I haven't thought much about it until this week. I realized that next week is Palm Sunday, Easter's after that. Like, we're really close to finishing out this season and celebrating Jesus' resurrection in a couple weeks. And that kind of kick-started me thinking about Lent, and Lent being a time of contemplation, remembering Jesus' sacrifice not just in his death, but his sacrifice in coming to this earth and living through the life that he lived on our behalf. And that really started to resonate with me with quarantine and the place that we find ourselves in right now. Because talking to people, thinking for myself even, we're always asking, why do we have to give this up? Why have we had to give up going out to eat, going to church, celebrating and worshiping together? Why are we giving up, more than a year of our time on campus in high school and schooling? There's a long list of things I'm sure that you could think of things that you've been forced to give up over the past 12 months. And that's the same around the world. The lists might be different, but everyone has been asked to, over the past year, give things up. And that's hard on us. It's not something that we can deny. It's not something that we should deny. We should admit that this has been a really, really hard year. Bring it back to Lent, though, and the season that we're in. We can also be remembering that the point of this time of year is to remember and think about what Jesus gave up on our behalf. I came across it in my reading this week, and the pastor mentioned it in church. The passage in Philippians 2 that talks about Jesus being completely and entirely in the nature of God, and then choosing of his own volition not to hang on to that equality, not to hang on to that glory, to give that up, to make himself nothing, to be born in this body of meat and muscle and bone as a human and live life on this earth. And he chose to do that on our behalf. He chose to give up, intimate unity with the Father and the Spirit, to go through this life on earth, to be sick and tired, to go through puberty, to be hungry, to be sad because he was grieving the loss of friends, to be sad at this, looking at the state of the world and just admitting and recognizing that he gave up so much and was willing to put himself in that spot on our behalf. So that's been really helpful to me as I've been thinking about Lent here, as I remembered it, as I've been thinking toward these last couple of weeks, looking toward the celebration of Palm Sunday next week, and then Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, the week after that. To remember that no matter what I have been asked to give up this past year, no matter what you have been asked to give up this past year, that all of that pales in comparison and is nothing next to what Jesus gave up on our behalf. And that's really helping put things in perspective for me. If he could do that on my behalf, if he could do that because of the love that he had, I can stand to be away from my job, my friends. I can stand to be in restrictive quarantine. I can stand to cancel tickets for the third time. I can be okay with those things and giving up some freedoms in my life because I know that that's the model that's been set for me by Jesus. That's the model that he gave us. And that's how he showed his love, was by being willing to give those things up. So that's made me a little more willing to give up what I've had to give up this year, and a little more understanding of what that means, and has helped me to remember his work more. And in the end, if something helps me remember what Jesus has done for me and for you, I'm okay with that. And that's worthwhile. So in these last 2 weeks of Lent, I hope that you can find some hope and some comfort in that yes, while it's been a hard year and we've had to give up a whole lot of things this year because of coronavirus, because of COVID, the quarantine, and the travel restrictions, that Jesus was willing to give up more on your behalf and for your sake. And so we can be willing to give up a few things too in the meantime. So keep that thought in your head as we work our way toward Palm Sunday and then Easter in a couple weeks. And as always, stay safe, stay sane. This is the barn on my grandparents' property where my dad grew up and lived for a good chunk of his life, and where my grandfather and grandmother both lived until they died. And these are the chickens that my brother is raising now, and my nephew who just hurt himself.